district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text, that trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Dan, all I got is this for you, brother. We did it, buddy. We did it.
There you go.
We finally brought home the gold. FFPC 500. I know you guys are sick of hearing about it, but come on, man. I mean, just anyone. This weekend was crazy, Dan. I know you've got a bunch of teams that you follow, and you're in a bunch of DMs with me, and a bunch of guys were playing for huge money, and the swings just made this weekend so fun and so crazy. I went into Sunday. You and I couldn't remember if we recorded on Saturday, Sunday. I couldn't remember, but I know we had played some games, and I think Kamara had already blown up. So I was literally playing for second. And I had Diggs and Adams going into Sunday night. And I didn't even watch that game live, the Sunday night game. I recorded it. I was hanging with the wife, or recorded it, whatever. I played it after. I streamed it. And just watching that thing, I went in like so close, and all I had was Diggs. I had a 13-point lead, and he had Jacoby Myers for that Monday nighter. And Diggs just put on a show. And, we've been talking about it all year, man. He's been taking teams on his shoulders and just taking them all the way to that trophy this year. And he killed it in that last week. And it was awesome.
Yeah. And that's what I really love about week 16 is that, it's really almost set up for those, for the big sweats and everything, because you've got generally, some more games earlier in the week before Sunday, usually a couple, 3 on Saturday. If Christmas falls before that Sunday, then you usually get a Christmas Day game. And then you've got the Monday nighter, and so it's set up where if the players cooperate, you can get some really, really big swings. And this year was about as good as I can remember. With Kamara coming out with that massive performance, and then you got Tom Brady and Mike Evans coming up with some pretty big ones on Saturday, and then, and then on Monday night, all of a sudden, some teams came roaring back with Diggs and Josh Allen. I mean, it was just fantastic. The winner of the FFPC main event was so far down when I was checking the leaderboard to see who might win it. I didn't even get to his team, and I was like, okay, well, these are the most likely suspects. And all of a sudden I checked it again at the end on Monday night, and I'm like, who's this guy? I mean, I just didn't even have him in the running at all as to one of the ones who might finish with the crown. So, yeah, fun weekend, without a doubt.
Yeah, it was fun, man. And I think any fantasy player fan really enjoyed it. I mean, how can you not? And look, we wanted to do a show tonight that, celebrates champions. And you and I played in some serious leagues. You invited me into one. The FFPC invited us as pros into a pros versus Joe's Superflex Dynasty. We got to choose. We chose the Superflex League. That's a 250 buy-in. And you invited me to the Hardway Dynasty. I mean, I'll let you, kind of detail the players, the sharks that are in this league. But man, that was a tough one, and that's a 500 buy-in right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So this league kind of came about because for the past couple of years, we've done what we call the Hardway Football Guys Draft and the Football Guys Championship. We had we had a couple players, that were kind of barking back and forth at each other on Twitter about, that I believe the subject was Derrick Henry and was he worth where he was getting drafted and all that kind of stuff. And so a few people are like, well, dude, let's just get in the league and settle who's the best drafter or whatever. And so anyway, several of us got together. We got that league going. It was a lot of fun, just a ton of fun. We had a great time. We had a good chat going along with the league and everything. So there was a lot of participation in it. We did it again this year, and then some league version of the same thing. And we kicked that around for a couple months, and it was kind of going and kind of not. And then Noah Riddell really took the bull by the horns, and he pulled in quite a few people from a few disciplines, not just great redraft players or dynasty players, but also players from the DFS world, sports gambling, a little bit of everything. So we have a pretty broad arrangement of people. And one of them who we should bring in here, Brandon, he ended up being the winner of this league, despite, I'm guessing, Brandon, probably never having played dynasty football before.
That was my first. That was my first dynasty league. So it was good. It was a good one to start with all the sharps.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a lot of people coming in with that one. We had Theo Grimminger at he does some writing for player profiler. We had Austin Martin, who won the $500,000 FFPC playoff challenge last year. We had Noah, who of course he's in quite a few different fantasy sports endeavors and gambling. Ian Hartitz, who you probably know from Pro Football Focus. We had and then some of the really well-known people from the FFPC world, like Sports Betting Man Lance, what we call affectionately Old Noah, Go With What You Got, is the team name he uses, and a few other people too. So we had a great, strong crew. It was just a lot of fun to get all these people together and see what happened. And Brandon took home the prize in the first year. So about yourself, how did Noah rope you into this in the first place?
Honestly, I saw he had tweeted something. I saw a bunch of stuff going back and forth, and like you were saying about who's the best drafter, all that kind of stuff. And I saw him pretty much just bring up anything about any new players that wanted to get in. And he had saw that I had previously won the Best Ball Mega Championship in 2018. So he invited me in, and I had to take the shot at it. I wanted to see how I could do in a dynasty league.
Yeah, you stepped up, man.
Awesome. That's great. So yeah, so you've done basically more DFS than anything, and then some of those best ball things.
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing DFS since the Draft Street days. I mean, back in long time ago, way before DraftKings even was a thing. But so we're doing that for a while. I've been playing season long for forever. I mean, with my buddies and whatever. So shout out to EFS, Effort of Fantasy Stars. But we've been playing since we were in middle school. So that's where I got all my prep to go into this. But yeah, Dynasty some I never really got into. I play in keeper league, stuff like that, but Dynasty's a whole nother ball game. And I kind of wanted to use a strategy coming into it like I do in DFS. I'm a GPP type player, so kind of thinking outside the box and see what I could do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your strategy for the draft, and what kinds of players you were wanting to come away with, who you came away with, and how that all worked for you.
Yeah, so going in, I mean, I had 10th pick. So I knew all the stud running backs were going off the board. I mean, that was just no doubt about it. So with it being a tight end premium league, and a dynasty as well. I wanted to get a stud tight end, so I went with Kittle. I feel like having a guy like that I can have for many years, I don't have to worry about tight end for a while unless the injury happens, which obviously he got hurt this year for a little bit. But with a guy like that, you can pretty much just wipe away the whole tight end position. You don't have to worry about anything for years. So then later on, I just figured I'd come back. I'm not really I'm a zero running back kind of guy. I feel like down the road you can get anybody, and I mean we'll get into that later, I'm sure, about what I did. But my main thing that I wanted to do in this league, with it being a COVID year and not really knowing what was going to happen, I drafted 3 quarterbacks. I really drafted 4 quarterbacks, but at the end of the season, I only had 3. So I went with Josh Allen, who was my top-rated quarterback for a dynasty league, in my opinion, and then I ended up with Kyler Murray and Tua. So those were – I looked at it a couple ways, right? So a lot of people look at quarterback and just say, okay, well, they're guaranteed to get points. They're going to score a decent amount of points, whatever, and just look elsewhere. But with me having a couple top quarterbacks and only being able to start one, but taking away one, like Josh Allen, because I started Kyler Murray most weeks, Josh Allen wasn't scoring for anybody else. So that's where I looked at it. And if Kyler did get COVID or hurt or anything like that, I was still fine. And then Tua was just more of a backup plan where I was hoping he would crush. I could trade him, flip him, do something like that. But the Sharps didn't go for it too much. So I'm trying to move him.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a key thing. Getting quarterback right is such an underrated part of basically winning any redraft league. And the key is not necessarily spending a lot on the quarterback, but just making sure that you get that position right, because there's no position that can really turbocharge your lineup on any given week, like a quarterback, who puts up 35, 40 points in that setting. And when you have 3 guys who are capable of doing that, or at least 2, and then one who, certainly he showed some little teases of promise with Tua, and also a good player to just kind of hold on and see what happens to him. But having Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, because we were one of the teams, we thought we were doing pretty good at quarterback with Dak Prescott. And then when Dak got hurt, we were really scrambling around, and we ended up having to make a trade for Justin Herbert just to try to get ourselves back into it, because quarterback was just frankly killing us. Whereas if you'd lost one of your guys, you were definitely not going to be in that position. You just move right on to the next guy, and everything was going to be fine. So,
and that's
I like that strategy.
Yeah, that's another thing I just wanted to point out. So I didn't really – the strategy that I'd going in with the quarterback, I wanted to get one and then get one later, but it was the 6th round. I knew I could get Josh Allen, but Kyler Murray fell. So I wasn't even really set on Kyler Murray right away, but I just felt like that value was too high, and then was able to wrap around with Josh Allen, which is – it helped me immensely overall. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, definitely. I like how you played that. So talk a little bit about your running backs and what you did there.
So I went with Aaron Jones in the 3rd round. Like I said, I pretty much punt running back in most drafts. But once, with it being a dynasty, I didn't want to go fully just terrible running backs, because I didn't want to be stuck with some really bad running backs for years. So I went with Aaron Jones, and then it was the 9th round. I ended up taking Sony Michel, and I just went on a little bit of a run, taking Raquel Armstead and Damian Williams, who I thought at the time, especially in Jacksonville, I really liked Raquel. But with the COVID situation, Damian Williams got taken out. He didn't play the whole year. Raquel didn't play the whole year. So I ended up really having to just play the waiver wire, which is what I do anyways. Just kind of look for the best possible backup at the time. And luckily for me, McCaffrey went out, and I bid pretty much, I think it was 65% of my fab on Mike Davis. And fortunately, I mean, he smash spotted 3 weeks in a row to start. So I thought I had, I mean, definitely a league winner for a while, and he kind of slowed down and tapered off toward the end. But the nice thing was I was able to do some more and get like JD McKissick, who was just catching a bunch of passes in Washington, and just it's find little players like that could get me week to week and not kill me, would get me 10 to 14, and that's all you really need in a long season, you know. So you just can't have these guys that are getting you zeros and just survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
All right. And
sorry I disappeared, guys. I had a little beer situation, Dan. Left the beer in the freezer a little too long. And then, when you open it, you pour like half out. And then while you're talking, you look over and the table's covered in beer. That's why I kept going up and down, leaving. I'm like, I don't want to disturb, but so I'm back, boys. I'm back. And I just want to add, Dan, just really quick, because you guys were talking about the chat in this particular league, very similar to the GOAT leagues, man. Because of such a good group of guys and such a good active chat, it makes the league that much more fun,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think Brandon did a really nice job of moving with his running backs. Taking some guys that the Mike Davis move was huge. I thought, just as he said, because he had he had some smash weeks to start with, and then right back at the very end of the year, right when you're in the playoff, Mike Davis came back for you a little bit. So he was somebody that you could once again count on, and I guess you probably were not too brokenhearted about Antonio Gibson's little injury there, putting McKissick in the limelight for you.
That worked out funny well. Because yeah, I mean it's funny, but whenever Gibson went down, I had a lot of money riding on him in DFS. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when he went down, I was pretty much dead spotted in DFS. But I knew McKissick, just playing him in the flex spot, so I was able to get those 3 running backs in the way that the setup is with the roster construction. I mean, McKissick's pretty much a wide receiver in my mind. So he's not gonna run the ball. So I'll take the 8 catches a game. He's
like a slot receiver.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's awesome, and I love those guys. I mean, it was unfortunate. I really, coming out of the draft, I really liked having Damian Williams because I didn't think of him as a stud number 1 or anything like that. But having Aaron Jones and then all the wide receivers, I mean, I had Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Thielen, T.Y. Hilton, and my favorite guy, Steven Sims. So I'll always shout him out. He never gets the love, but he's a baller, man. If he ever had a quarterback, he'd be incredible.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. I thought you had a great, a great group of wide receivers that really helped kind of key you. And Brandon won the regular season. He had the most points as well. So that was, that in a position where he didn't need to, make it through the wild. Where a couple players get knocked out, championship. So I think, I think also right now we also need to bring in. We've had somebody kind of hide back, waiting in the wings, as it were, because we are about champions, plural. We got another champion in here, Andrew Schellenberg, and he was the Goats versus Pro champion. So we've had Andrew kind of sitting back and listening. What do you think about Brandon's strategy, Andrew, and how did that compare to yours?
Yeah. I'm hearing it and I'm liking it, and I realize now that I wish you hadn't had us both on at the same time, because I apparently copied Brandon's strategy to the T.
That's important though, man. That's important.
More of a joke that I was just trying to steal his signals, and I'd hacked into his computer. No, I mean we were a super flex, but I mean Brandon, it was interesting. Loved waiting in the wings, drinking the beer on the side, but hearing you had the 10th pick, I had the 10th pick. George Kittle's where we went there at 10. I will. I guess I'll just mention here quickly. I was on last time, and I did not mention my co-owner, and then for a lot of FFPC dynasties, but my consigliere for this one, Drew. So he was helping me. So we got to the 10th spot, and I was texting him how it was going, and I was like, we were thinking super flex, we were thinking quarterback, we were thinking, any sort of combination. And it was kind of one of those things where Kittle was available in the same arguments that you just made, Brandon. Like, it's premium. He's a plug and play for years as long as he doesn't get hurt. We always, you mentioned that, but that spot basically it's shored up in the first round. And it was funny because I was kind of texting him, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, here's a crazy idea. I'm thinking Kittle is like, I was about to text you the same thing. You should go Kittle. So it was one of those things where all kind of came together. So interesting that we were all thinking the same things. And I'll even tell you in ours, we had Curtis from RotoViz. He was sliding into the DMs constantly trying to get Kittle. So I think that there was ton of value there in finding him and finding that plug and play. And of course, the offers we were getting and how the season played out. Of course, maybe in season, maybe they were a little more enticing. But again, Brandon, as you mentioned, and nailed that long-term value is going to be there for Kittle. And then I'll just say again, just to take the page out of your book, Brandon, we super flex, but quarterbacks are coming off the board. I think these goats here, I think they hopped my pick to get Deshaun Watson. So at that point, I moved back in the draft. I grabbed Adams, gave away next year's first round pick to make sure that I could get, old looks good in shorts and throws a rocket arm, Josh Allen. So he was our first pick there for our super flex lead. So in terms of how you describe the start, obviously different rounds for Allen, but love that start there. So I see how you and I were both very successful this year, no doubt about it.
And I'll throw in, I know Dan said my title isn't like a fancy name or whatever, but it's still that the reason I was so happy to win that is it's one of the hardest dynasty leagues I've been in. It's a 500, whatever. It's been going on for a few years now. But again, very similar, guys, to your construction. I have Kittle. I traded for him before the season started. And similar to you, Shelly, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I pivoted to a similar guy that you did that you can talk about.
Yeah.
That helped a lot of fantasy players, especially in the second half there. So if you did lose Kittle and you made the right move, you were okay. And like you said, the long-term value in a tight end premium, we've been hammering that for 2 years now on this show. You need that stud at that position. The young QBs you talked about, I went out and got Herbert. But another thing that Brandon talked about is just those studs at receiver. You need to have those bangers at receivers. I always say I want as many top 12 receivers in those 4 spots in the FFPC, top heavy, and then just go depth at RB and play it, whatever you can hit on JD McKissick or whatever. Sorry, go ahead, Shelly.
No, exactly right. So in terms of Brandon's construction, I love everything I heard. When we get to the running back side I chose a lot more creaky and older guys, and less slot back PPR fellas. But no, I mean that roster construction is exactly right, and I think that Brandon, it's interesting to hear because this was my second year playing FFPC, and I think that thought process of ZRRB, and there's debates all over the place about is it truly not taking one until like the 9th round, or is it one in the first 5, one in the first 4, whatever that may be. I mean, JD, Brandon, you guys have just both touched on the plan for me was to brutalize people with those wide receivers. Those wide receivers, man, look, projections are one thing, but you just see those 20s hitting your lineup and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good when I see those 20s for the PPR, right? And so the goal was to lock up, super flex spot. We can talk about that a little bit, but it was like, hey, I want to find 3 stud wide receivers and just pummel people with those 3 guys and hope that running back just gets figured out. So that exact same strategy. And then JD, to your point, I'll give a shout out, no free ads here, but a great follow. Ryan McDowell, I think it's at Ryan Mac 23. And he did his PPR top 12. I think we ended up going Adams, Ridley. I mean, I even traded up in Ridley and grabbed him way ahead of most other people in that tier. I think I was like, hey, he's the guy over Robinson, Amari Cooper, etc. Grabbed Ridley and then grabbed Robert Woods. And so with those 3 guys, all 3 of them made top 12 this year. And look, got super lucky with injuries. I think most of them were pretty healthy. Maybe they missed 2 or 3 games each, but for the most part, pretty healthy and just was able to just like pummel people with those three guys in the middle of the lineup with that super flex spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew, I gotta give you props for being the first person to utter the word consigliere on the podcast. Yeah, you won the trophy on that as well.
Oh, is the award in the mail?
It is.
I don't even know that word, so that's pretty good.
I think I stole it from The Godfather. I think Robert Duvall was the consigliere leaving horse heads in people's beds. So it's a good one.
Yep.
So Shelly, we talked about what worked, and obviously a lot worked, but is there anything you might do differently? If like just looking back now in hindsight, is there anything, that you can, maybe a little tip you can throw out there going into 2021? Because, Dynasty, we're all looking now to the future, right? How are we going to win that next one?
Yeah. And actually I was trying to, I did some prep for this, not completely flying blind. So I did go back to our draft board, and like the things that we think in the middle of summer is like totally different than how this plays out. I mean, my thoughts, as I mentioned, Allen stud. I did have a plan to purposefully go get Herbert, and did have Tyrod, right? So the punctured lung and the acceleration of Herbert's career, was obviously incredibly helpful here. Top 12 quarterback in that super flex spot. But, the goal was to brutalize people at the wide receivers, to have stud quarterbacks, and to get those creaky old guys who might be on their last leg, and just like hope that I can find like 1 to 2 of them to tide me through the whole year. So I did go like Drake, Connor, Mark Ingram, David Johnson. But I look back about like who I took those guys over. I mean, like people like I would have I took Kenyon Drake over that entire tier of wide receivers I just talked about. Looking at it now, Galladay, Cooper, Robinson, Julio Jones, Metcalf, like McLaurin. Like would I love to have any of those wide receivers over Kenyon Drake? Like obviously. So I think if I was a little bit smarter and I could go back and just tell like older, like past me one thing, it'd be go to do the Brandon strategies, like punt the running back just a little bit more, and maybe get one more of those wide receivers to see if I can't figure out in the waiver wire a better strategy. So I really think it made sense at the time in terms of my overall team construction. I'll get these old running backs. I'll see what works. Hopefully I can find 2 that work the whole season. And I'll kind of give you guys the punchline here in terms of, that was the bad thing. I'll even say, I think I took David Johnson right before Antonio Gibson, which is like absolutely horrific. The point here was, I got really lucky, and sort of similarly to Brandon and the Mike Davis story, because I think he was a great waiver wire hero in the first couple of weeks. I spent a lot of money on James Robinson, spent a lot of money on Gaskin. And if I went back and looked at my starting lineups over the course of the year, it was those 2 guys that I started most often over like the Drakes, the Connors, the David Johnsons, the whoever's. And so I was able to figure out through the waiver wire and didn't even need to get those old Craggedy guys, and probably could have been taking better shots on wide receivers. Again, going back to that strategy of pummeling people in the FFPC with wide receivers, or some of the younger running backs. So I think a few of the older guys was fine to try to tide me over and give me some week 1, week 2 comfort. But I got to remember next time, and I will, the waiver wire is an okay place to be if you're willing to spend and gamble early in the season.
I'm gonna come back to you, Shelly. We touched a bit on Kittle, and I talked about the pivot that you went to. Is I traded halfway through the season. I sent Mo Ali Cox and a second for Mr. Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
And I loved the trade at the time. I loved being able to get him in the FFPC, putting him behind Kittle, and he actually overperformed to my expectations. Is he someone you drafted? I didn't get a chance to look at the draft board. Or is he someone you traded for? Or what are your thoughts on Logan moving forward?
No, it's almost as if I'm a great audience plant. No, I went back to actually figure him and James Robinson out. So I do have a question for you guys. I don't know if you guys want to look it up or if you guys remember back. But I'll tell you, I looked at the first waiver run, the one that ran right before I think I was flying out to Vegas. Maybe Dan, you were flying out to Vegas that Wednesday night, and I distinctly remember Logan was a waiver bid. But I went back and looked at it, and I got him I drafted Jack Doyle, and I dropped Doyle in favor of Logan Thomas for 17 fab dollars in that first run.
Nice.
So that was great. Some would say inspired, not me. But I would tell you the dumbass thing I did. I'm looking at it now, I had Dan Arnold as a higher priority than Logan Thomas. So again, like this is like better to be lucky than good. It just so happens that somebody outbid me on Dan Arnold, 26 over my 17. And so that way the FFPC, defaulted into Logan Thomas. And I can see nobody else, I don't think had any other bids there.
No, you were the only one bidding on Thomas for that one. So
yeah, no, and honestly, it all goes back to, I mean, I think I remember like, hey, he was one of those, like you start to see those rumblings in Twitter, you start to see those like those reports, and of course we didn't have the preseason issue, and you kind of like wonder like what's true, what's not, what's just smoke, and it was one of those things where like, well, hey, Dan Arnold and Logan Thomas are both dart throws, let's see which one works. And it just so happens I got outbid on one and the other. And it wasn't just through some grand design. I knew that Logan Thomas was going to be the guy. It was just like, hey, I got to get Jack Doyle out of here. Let's ship him out and let's find a new tight end. So no, that Logan Thomas worked out perfectly and better than I would have ever hoped for, especially with that pivot from Kittle.
You guys are both kind of newer to Dynasty on the FFPC for Shelly and then Brandon just Dynasty period. Is there anything you like or don't like about Dynasty specifically, just or maybe even the format overall that you guys liked or didn't like? Either way.
I mean, I was thinking back and I liked everything, man. The one thing I really liked about the setup, especially on FFPC, was the victory points. I mean, I started out 0-2, and the first week I had the second most points. The second week I had like the fourth most points or something like that. So in a situation like that, if it's a traditional league, I'm falling behind pretty quickly to some good teams where I have a good enough team to compete, but you might not make the playoffs because you got a bad record, which, I mean, that's something I've never really seen before with victory points. So I really enjoyed it. And obviously it helped me because like Dan said, I was first in points overall, and I ended up actually having the best record overall too. But it was nice to not worry as much when I was 0-2 to start the season.
And to show you how hard the league was, you finished, if I'm not wrong, 9-4, and that's how tough, right? And that's how tough this league is. Because I know the leagues that I won, I was like 11 and whatever. Like this was not an easy league.
No.
I was gonna add something to. With the victory points. So Dan will contest to this. I implemented those, into all the GOAT leagues, because if anyone doesn't know how it works, is the victory points, they take into consideration the points for and the points against. So if you, let's say, lose to the second high, to the highest score, and you have the second highest score that week, it'll take that into consideration, and you'll still get something for being one of the top end scorers that week. And I feel if you don't have that in your leagues, I would strongly recommend you look into it, because I think it does reward the best teams, and kind of, not that luck is taken out of the game, but it evens out the playing field in the sense that if your team's good and you're scoring, you're going to benefit, whereas in the kind of the generic format, if you want to call it that, it's not necessarily that way, because you're just going wins and losses, right? And you can go 3 weeks in a row. We've all been there, where you score the second highest or third highest in the league and you lose those weeks and you get nothing, right? So I love that you brought that up, Brandon. Shelly, what about you?
Yeah, no, the lucky and good, right? That you normally get the bye, right? Especially if we're talking these managed leagues. Get one of the top 2 seeds, you get most of your money back, to 80 to 90%. I love that. I mean, I will tell you, being like newer to Dynasty, and you guys are great with the always be trading. I have to tell you that, like, sometimes did I get my evaluation on these players right can be like, paralyzing. Hey, I think I got it, but like maybe I think that this player is valued more. Like let's use like the waiver wire hero of maybe even the entire year, like James Robinson. It's like when is the right time to sell James Robinson? And I'll tell you, there was a lot of times where I thought like, do I sell him now? Do I get 2 pieces? Do I sell him low? Is his value going to go even higher? And obviously the answer for me was keep him the entire year. I will tell you, when it comes to dynasty, the question is just like, am I seeing the same value in this player that another manager is? And so I liked hearing, Brandon was also trying to do that for Tua. You got these sharp players, and they weren't having any of it. And so it's just that concept of like, am I, when I'm swimming with these sharps, right? Because I am a Joe in this pros versus Joe's league. Am I making the right call? Am I selling or buying at the right time? Or am I just getting absolutely like roasted here on a trade? So I will tell you, for me, I played way more conservative than I ever would have, knowing that I was swimming amongst the sharps there in this dynasty league.
Which is kind of funny because, I mean, you went into it with the idea of, you were just gonna go for it. I mean, this was, I was talking to you a little bit behind the scenes, and you're like, man, I am just totally fucking going for it in this league. I'm going to try to take this thing down in year one.
I said, and by the way, there's no award in the mail so far, no tweets so far saying congratulations on the pros versus Joe's league. I've seen some other pros versus Joe's from Darren Armani, but no, I mean, I was like, hey, all the glories in year one. Like, who knows if these things fizzle out, if they die, if some of the pros leave, and it's like this whole thing falls apart. And obviously, I hope not. But I was just like playing for the future. I'm going for it. I'm treating this like a redraft league. I'm going to try to win this year one. So I'm without first round and second round pick this year, and that's okay because I get my first round pick a year early with Justin Herbert. But yeah, I did go for it. But the point is like every time I thought about getting rid of somebody or moving somebody or doing some kind of blockbuster deal, I was just like, and maybe it was Dan, going back to the, hey, just sit tight. Let's just the team's rolling. Let's see where it lands, and obviously ended up being successful in the end.
Quick shout out to the chat, to Oklahoma, our boy down there in the South. Just a riot, man. Go follow him on Twitter, and our buddy Will Harris over there at Viridian and True North Fantasy. Shout out to Will. And guys, we're talking about the FFPC. Alex earlier sent me a quick message. He sent me some updates with regards to the tournaments. Look, we're all happy we won these chips, and it's been a crazy year, to say the least. And the NFL playoffs, I mean, are fun, whether you're betting, whether you're doing prop bets, DFS, whatever it is. But, our fantasy leagues are kind of done. And the FFPC's brought in something that for me has replaced that, bridging, Dan, from what just ended to you and I being in the first best ball that is launched on the FFPC, and you going, who knows, at 101 this year. Shout out to AJ Brown, last year's 101. But just to say, like, it's a fun format. Again, the FFPC, the reason we talk about it, they're great supporters of the show, but the reason they are is because we play on the site, and the format is just challenging. It's fun. It's something different. I'm trying to find my graphics here. There we go. All right, there you see it on the screen, guys. There's 2 tournaments. There's let me get Oklahoma off. Technical challenges here in the Go District. So it's 500 grand, guys. Like 500 grand to play 3-4 weeks of fantasy. There's nothing like this on the planet. $200 will get you into the big boy challenge, the FFPC playoff challenge. That's to win 500 grand, 1.09 million in prize pool money. And the Football Guys Playoff Challenge, $35 to enter, guys. Come on, $35 to win 100 grand. Deadline Saturday, January 9th at 1:05 p.m. And I mean, again, I'll say it every show. If you're not on the FFPC yet and you're listening, I'd be really surprised. But if you aren't, send Dan and I a quick DM, a quick email, whatever it is, goatdistrict@gmail.com or at goatdistrict or at overhyped sleeper, no E on the end. And we'll get you a little hookup with your sign-up bonus and your deposit bonus. So, you guys play the playoff challenge? You guys tried it yet? Yeah?
I did last year. Yeah.
So
I'm done this year with my winnings, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Alex, if you're listening, he's got a big grin on his face. He likes to hear that. Redeposit those winnings and reinvest them. But that's a great way to do it. You know what I mean? And I know Dan and I, we're going to be doing quarter milli billies. We're going to start off with a bang. We're going to bring in last year's 500 grand winner next week. And Dan and I are entering in both tournaments. So we're going to be putting together a few shows talking about strategy, talking about our own rosters, you know, maybe get some other guests onto the show that are experienced or have won in the past. But guys, if you're into fantasy, this is a no-brainer. You know, it's on the best site, myffpc.com. And you're not winning 500 grand for a few weeks of fantasy anywhere on the planet. And there it is. Dan, I'm going to pass it to you, brother. You've been a little quiet.
Just letting you guys go. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I just got to tell Andrew, you know, we haven't sent out your congratulatory tweet yet, but I mean, you are on the GOAT cast. So, I mean, you know, what else are you looking for here, bud?
I wanted like a box of those, like a confetti in the mail where I open it. It's like surprise prank confetti all over my. Yeah, you got it. That's what I was expecting. That was why I pushed all the chips in on this one. I don't know what else you push the chips in for.
Dan, do you know if they send anything for the dynasties? Like I'm excited because this is my first Dino win on it. I've won the football guys championship leagues and those type of things. They send you like these medals, but I don't know if you get anything for the dynasty ones.
Just the bragging rights. That's what you get.
That's good enough, man.
Yeah, the dollar bills. So there's nothing wrong with either one of those. Yeah, it's gonna be fun next week with Austin on here. You know, as JD mentioned, the winner of the 2019 FFPC playoff challenge, and you know, he's gonna have a lot of good stuff to share with us. So you know, if you're listening to us right now, make sure you set up to watch us next week or download it, listen to the podcast. If you're going to be into this championship at all, you're going to want to hear what Austin has to say for sure.
And Dan, what's the date today? 29th, 30th? What is it? Remind me.
Oh, let's call it the 30th.
All right. So you have 24 more hours to enter into the draw to win an entry into one of these two FFPC tournaments. Dan and I have the email ready. It's ready. It's in my draft box in Outlook right now to send to Alex the winners for each tournament. Right now, into the draw are names of people who tagged us, whether they bought GOAT gear on ViridianGlobal.com/collection/GOAT-district. You can get your GOAT gear on there. A bunch of other pods that you probably listen to have their gear on there. You can grab a couple pieces from there, make a nice bundle, place an order. Tag Dan and I on. I know it's 24 hours. So even if you just show us the proof that you've made the purchase and what it is, tag us on it. We'll enter your name into the draw. Guys, you can win $500,000. It's again, no brainer. And another way you can get in because of the short time, if you go on Apple Podcasts, you give us a 5-star review, show us what you've done, tag us on it at Go District, at Overhyped Sleeper. We will enter you into the draw. This is only available to listeners and people who view us on YouTube. We didn't advertise this on Twitter anywhere else because we want to reward you guys for sticking to us through this season. We want to thank you. You guys have been awesome in every way. The feedback, the interaction, the trades you guys tag us on, the downloads. We've surpassed, what was it, Dan, this year? 50,000 downloads or something crazy like that. Like the fact that 50,000 people don't even want to listen to us. Or whatever, you know, I mean, it's insane, man. The support is awesome. The sponsors have been awesome. Go check out mybookie.net. Use the code GOAT. Go check out Monkey Knife Fight. Again, you're supporting the show. Monkey Knife Fight is awesome. If you're in a DFS, prop bets, betting on games, this is a totally different twist. And there's a reason that they're blowing up in this realm. Because it's a cool, creative way to play fantasy and betting on sports, kind of combination of both. Again, use the code GOAT. You get a free $50 with your first deposit. I don't know. Anything else to add, Dan?
Well, yeah, not only that, I mean, but, you know, at some point in this past year, weren't we like the top 10 something podcast in Peru or somewhere like that?
Top 3 or 4. And the other day I got another one in Korea. We're pretty big in Korea, Dan.
They love you.
I don't want to say there might be any confusion with the name Goats, but
hey man, we international, baby. That's all that matters.
That's right. That's all that matters. I'm sure the football fans definitely football fans.
No, I'll add, Dan, JD. I mean, I entered with 2 bullets last year, failed, miserably, as I am wont to do. But I mean, I'm looking forward to a conversation with Austin. Austin's another great guy. Sometimes I also slide into his DM. He's great that he allows me to do that. But I'll tell you and not steal any of his thunder. But I'll just, again, that plugged in next week. I mean, you look at his roster from last year, and it was sharp, but not totally galaxy brain. You think I have to be like Mr. Galaxy Brain and hit on all these small guys over the course of the playoffs. And I'll tell you, I mean, if somebody just told you hey, here is the winning roster, after the fact, you're like,
duh.
Duh.
Yeah.
But then the fact that it blows my mind. The whole tournament. So I'm really interested in seeing that, because again, one of those things where it's not after the fact, it makes total sense that this is the answer. But he was the most unique person and hit all the right beats.
The right combination.
Really looking forward to seeing that process.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because you know how you get those emails from the FFPC and they show you the winning roster. I remember looking at it and thinking exactly that. I'm thinking duh. Yeah, man, fucking it not be this,
Yeah. I mean, we had some buddies that we do some main events with, and our best finish this year is 48th. And I was I was telling one of them, I was like, hey, here's the winning. I was like, hey, here's who won. Here's the total points. And they were like, what? How the hell did they get that? Did they cheat? Was the league fixed? I was like, dude, take a look at these players. All these players on this roster are all would have been easily obtainable. It's just fitting those right puzzle pieces at the right time. It's just, I mean, it was a pretty thing to unfold. As Dan mentioned, the guy came from way behind because of a few freak weeks, which is great at the end. It just wasn't me. So I was sad.
It's like a real life Rubik's Cube. You got to get the right combination, line them up perfectly. You can't take the stickers off and reposition them and all that. You got to put the puzzle together. And sometimes it's not as, like you said, out of the box as you think. You don't have to go DFS, right? Like MTT styles in poker or whatever it is whatever strategy that you might follow.
Yeah, so I think Brandon, you'll like it if you play this year. Again, it's not it wasn't like he was doing the Gabe Davises and whatever. He was just having the sharpest of plays, and it was beautiful. So
I don't know if you know, Brandon, but basically what it is, you're picking one player from each team to fill each position. You're filling an FFPC starting lineup, so tight end premium, same build, and you can only pick one player per team in the playoffs. So there's 2 teams when you go into that wild card. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not using players from. You got to choose which teams those are.
This year, because of that extra wild card on each side.
And it's funny because we laugh how the FFPC forces you to look at defenses and kicker, and they're definitely crucial in this one.
Yeah, it definitely sounds interesting. I'm looking forward to checking it out and doing some research on it and stuff like that. I'll definitely be playing. I'll tell you that much.
All right, boys. We appreciate you sticking with us tonight.
Yeah,
JD, I have a question for you. I don't mean to cut you off, but I have a question for you if we have time for it.
Yeah, go ahead, dude. We got all the time in the world. My wife's in bed. I'm good to go, brother.
No, good. Okay, good. So you're gonna help me retool this old team that I now have. I'm gonna compete against you guys again. And Brandon, I need your help too, because I'm interested in what you have going on in yours. We got to make roster cuts here in a couple months. I'm sure you guys are gonna have a ton of shows leading up to that, but we got to get down to 16. But the trade window will open back up, a couple weeks in advance of that. And it's not like I'm going to ask this question and not have an answer on my own, but who are some guys that you're thinking about, that you're already thinking about targeting next year? Either I'm not talking rookie drafts. I'm talking who are you going to try to buy before the trash heap comes and the roster cutdowns? Any guys in particular on your minds? And if you guys want me to vamp a little bit, and I'll kind of give my ideas while you guys think of it, or for you guys have anybody that comes to mind, happy for you guys to run. I'm just interested in you guys' thoughts.
I'll go to Brandon first, just because Dan and I kind of touched on this in our last recording, guys, because we talked exactly about that, how to build the bottom part of your roster this time of year. You know what I mean? Take advantage of the waiver wire still. Don't leave your roster and say, I'll worry about it later. This is where you pick up guys like, and I'll go to Brandon because again, we talked about it last week, and we'll just fill in whatever doesn't get dropped.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of putting on the spot. I don't really have a specific answer, but what I'll say is I mentioned him earlier in the show. Steven Sims is like a guy for me that I'm all over Steven Sims.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people are just.
He's like the JD McKissick of receivers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I hope he's a little better than McKissick. I don't know, maybe not, but yeah, I mean, just guys like that. I mean, Alan Lazard, just random receivers like that. I mean, you can pick these guys up pretty cheap, I would think, but a big name guy that I think is actually worth trading for, and I'm a Steeler fan, so maybe I'm a homer, but Deontay Johnson is just he's going to be
the biggest buy right now.
Bomb, man. He's gonna he'll catch the ball at some point. I promise you, he will catch the ball at some point.
Even Brandon, even if you think you're buying high, I still think he's a buy, right?
Yeah. I don't think you're buying high. The injuries have brought in his value down nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
But JD Dan, that's on me. I've got a Christmas backlog of podcasts. It's piled up and is currently overwhelming. Always download, but my download list is just out of control right now.
I'm gonna say. You know what I do? You know what I do? I downloaded one of those dice apps. And I'll click the dice and it gives me a number and I'll scroll down to whatever number in the podcast. That's how I choose because I got so many to listen to. So I subscribe, I download, and then whatever the dice goes to, that's who I'm listening to at that time. That's how I do it.
I'm like, I'm going to catch up eventually. And it's just like, no, over Christmas holidays, you think you have more time. And it's actually way less.
You have less.
That's terrible.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so I had a couple thoughts, and again, if you guys touched on it, just shoot me into the sun, and that's fine too. But I was thinking, Paris Campbell was one option. I think around that. You guys touched on him last week.
No. Go ahead.
I think he's one where like his talent is still untapped, and I still believe in his talent. And I think that there's plenty there, and it's one of those things, and maybe even Brandon, similar to McKissick and Steven Sims, who I love that call. It's a great call for, I know you kind of put on the spot there. I mean, you get any serviceable quarterback, maybe a preseason, and I think that like that slot guy is going to take off there. And I think similarly, even in that first game against the, my mighty Jaguars, my Trevor Lawrence led Jaguars in 2021, I mean, Paris Campbell was used all over that field in week 1. He really was. I drafted him everywhere, dropped him like an idiot, and then tried to scramble to pick him back up everywhere, only for him to get hurt and out for the season in week 2. But nevertheless, I still think that he's a really good buy, and I think it's players like him, like these maybe second, third year breakouts. Maybe there's like an injury. Again, it's Steven Sims, I think it would be a third year breakout next year too. I mean, where they're just like flying under the radar and just like ready to be picked up like on the cheap right before that roster cut down to 16. If you guys can churn the roster like that.
You don't have to look far, guys. Look at the number 1 receiver this year. What year did he break out in? 4 or 5? Yeah, these are exactly, and this is what we did last year, Shelly, last week is we didn't even talk about specific guys only, is we actually talked about like strategy. You talked about your Jags. Look at teams where their quarterback situation is going to improve, where their coaching situation is going to improve, where their offense situation is going to improve. And even just where Fantasyland is looking the other way, like we keep talking about Diggs, but nobody liked him going to Buffalo. Let's face it. No. People were trying to give him away all offseason because it's kind of like the running back in Detroit. It just looking at it, it's gross. You just like, oh, he's wearing that jersey. He's not going to be good. They haven't had a good running back in forever. It's the same. There's certain guys like that where most of Fantasyland, it's almost like a visual thing, or I don't know what it is. But they just don't connect the two together, and that's where you pick up value because you're getting it at a discount.
Well, yeah, and I want to just say about the Paris Campbell thing. So if they lose Rivers, which would be a huge uptick for really anybody else they bring in, if they bring in Stafford or something like that,
chairs.
Yeah. Everyone would be better.
Yeah,
but that's exactly the type of situation you're looking at. It's an old quarterback. They're obviously going for a run. They don't win it this year. He might come back next year. But if they have an opportunity to improve the quarterback situation, if they don't win it this year, Like, unless they win it, you know what I mean? And even then, he's probably going to retire. He's got 29 kids at home he's got to take care of or whatever. So
one of the players,
the situation is key. Sorry, Dan.
Oh, go ahead. One of the players we were talking about in the Hardway chat we were talking about Logan Thomas and how he's, even though, he really kind of smashed this year, he's still a little bit underrated because people, look at him and they're thinking, well, he's old or whatever. He's really only a year older than Kittle. He's just kind of tapping his potential. He's kind of like a Darren Waller, if you will.
Yeah.
A year or so ago. And people are probably going to underrate him a little bit because of that, because, he came late to the position. He never was one of those draft darlings, which get all of us dynasty people all excited because, he wasn't a first round pick or a second round pick even. He basically kind of came out of nowhere.
He's a fourth rounder, but Dan, if you look at like his workout metrics, he's pretty impressive, man. He's similar to ASJ. You guys remember ASJ? Like, he's supposed to be, before he started drinking peach schnapps or whatever it was. It's like that dude was supposed to be huge, right? And Logan, I think, Dan, you nailed it. His age is gonna give him a nice discount going to next year. People are gonna disregard it, and the fact that he's on Washington.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that people, look at tight end and they say, well, it's such a terrible position. It's a crapshoot. The same guys never repeat, all that kind of stuff. So there's all these reasons why people are discounting him. And, all you need to do is just let the recency bias of what he actually did this year fade a little bit. And then he's going to be, I think, a good buy. Yeah. Another one I think is going to be a good buy, Curtis Samuel. I kind of almost hate the fact that he's just starting to smash here at the end of the year because it's bringing up his price. Except I don't really hate it that much because I already have him on every roster. So I was very proactive on that one. But Samuel's a free agent coming up this year. And I think he's probably going to get some pretty attractive offers. I mean, I think this is going to be a wild, wild year in free agency with the salary cap coming down from about 198 million to probably 176 million. Normally it goes up by 10 million every year. So, roughly 10 million and dropping down by 20 million. There is going to be a bloodbath with veteran players with overpriced contracts and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Even with that, the cap that low, there are still going to be some teams with plenty of money to spend. There are still going to be some teams that are looking for rising up and coming players like Curtis Samuel. So, I think he's a player who could end up moving to somewhere pretty good, and he's a strong player as it is. And I think we're going to see some quarterbacks moving around too. We talked about Stafford, as being potentially a quarterback on the move. If Detroit decides, we're going to completely clean house and we're going to go with the cheaper option. I mean, I'm not exactly sure where Detroit is at on the salary cap, but I do know if they cut Stafford, they save $14 million. Or if they trade him. So
I think Galladay is a free agent too. So obviously there's some changes there and some opportunity there. I mean, I think Brandon, you've got it. And I think I might even be further zero RB next year. Cause the one thing that I'm thinking about, especially cause I know we just mentioned a lot of wide receivers and no running backs. And I think it's cause it's risky to hold running backs over the offseason, but I think that we're moving to a 17-game schedule as soon as next year. Yep. Like I think that fragility at running back is going to be at an all-time high, and to have those just again, I'll say it for the 69th time on the podcast. The brutalizing wide receivers there, I think is going to be huge next year as we whenever we move to that 17-game season, because I just don't think the running backs are going to hold up, and I think that there's opportunities for sharp managers like us four, or at least you three, and I pretend to be. Whenever those early waiver wire runs come, to just, pounce and make your bets and hope the chips fall in your favor, with the injuries coming up. So I think this is the year to solidify your wide receiver core over the offseason.
And just to touch on that really quick, something we talk about a couple of times on the show is during the offseason, you want your invested money in a more stable situation. So if you're invested heavily at running back, it's iffy, man. It doesn't matter if it's Derrick Henry, Ronald Jones or whoever, Aaron Jones. Like, you don't know where these guys are going, what's happening. like the running back position is the most, it fluctuates, man. It's like the weed stocks, back like a year ago or whatever. They're up and down. It's like the NBA. We're talking about NBA cards right now, sports cards. It's just bananas. And you talked about, Dan, Curtis Samuel and Brandon. We were talking about that star stock earlier where you can buy, and sell cards. And there's two guys I've been buying in the last couple of weeks at like barely for nothing. And it's Curtis Samuel and Keyshawn Vaughn is the other one. Because I don't know, like Keyshawn Vaughn, like he was going middle of the first round, end of the first round in rookie drafts. I know, because I had a couple shares that I traded away before the season started because his value was just going through the roof. Guys, those are the guys. CEH right now is such a buy. Like his value is what? Like what's a person selling going to tell you? What has he done? He's done nothing. He was going for 5 first for before the season started or whatever. Otherwise, you overpaid. Now is the time to go get those pieces, whether it's running back, receiver who hasn't yet performed, especially the ones with the draft capital.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, in that running back category, I like that you said Vaughn. I mean, I like that for personal reasons. I have Vaughn, would like to move him, so hopefully that increases, right? But I think any of those rookie running backs, like the non-Taylor, Dobbins, who I think people are like really buying into, but I think now is still the time. I still think that you've got a nice buying window on Cam Akers. Because he had one flat week, and he'll be, I think, out for the rest of the season. Maybe for his stock and for people who want to buy, maybe the Rams don't make the playoffs. Maybe Chris Strelliver beats John Walford this weekend in the battle of unnamed quarterbacks. Maybe Cam Akers misses and there's still a buy opportunity there. I mean, I think maybe AJ Dillon flashed a little bit too much this past week, but I think it's these second year running backs who haven't flashed yet, but maybe have some level of draft capital. They just need the ambiguity ahead of them to clear, over the offseason. I think that they're still in great spots to buy here.
And just to add, just as an overall strategy, if you're not contending or not contending, if you are kind of building just to build value on the end of your roster, look at guys like you talk about Cam Akers, or look at guys that are on teams that are going to be in the playoffs. You talked about Lazard, like these guys shine in the playoffs, their values are going to skyrocket. That's the last thing people are going to remember is how they did in the playoffs. And that's, you have all off season to reap the rewards and, get the highest bidder and then sell that piece for something nice. And, we talk about Devontae Adams. He's the wide receiver one. They're going to have a nice run. He is the target monster in that offense. I don't know if Rodgers coming back next year. All I know is that for me, maybe Adams is a nice sell this offseason. I don't know. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Get me up with those offers for Adams.
I was gonna say I'd buy them. I'll tell you, you can sell them to me if you want.
It's hard to sell him if you won anything this year with them. Like again, having those guys that are just monsters in your top 3-4 positions, you can't replace that.
Right, and it was kind of funny in the Hardway Dynasty League. The Adams owner put him, kind of up for sale. I guess mid-year or so, something like that.
We took a crack, didn't we, Dan?
Yeah, we took a crack, and several other people took a crack at him. And the answer for Adams ended up being nobody could afford him. I mean, it was like, to get the price that his owner wanted, and really, I don't have any problem with him asking for that price, but it would just basically bankrupt your team to get him. So he was one of those guys that was just like, you know what, he's where he's going to be for right now because he's just too darn valuable to move.
Yeah. It's like McCaffrey, right? Like selling McCaffrey, like you're sending your whole team to buy him.
Yeah, but I mean, McCaffrey is also, it just kind of shows you, how values change. And, if you've got one of those guys who's in the, the top half of the first round, of startup dynasty value, the time to sell is right now. And because there's basically nowhere for the value to go but down.
Yeah.
Could somebody go from, being the 105 and a startup to being the 102? Yeah, sure. But, how much has that really changed their value? But if they get an injury or, their quarterback gets hurt or they get a crappy coach or whatever, their value could just all of a sudden tank. It's like there's the floor is endless and the ceiling is you're at it right now. So it's one of those things you just got to look. And it's really hard to trade a Davante Adams right now. But honest to God, if I had him, and I could find somebody who was willing to pay the iron price for him, I'd definitely move him.
Oh, I'll be trying.
Yeah, like pay the iron price.
Yeah, this is hot take. Just like it popped in my head as you're talking, but like guys that you can get rid of at a high price for a lot. I mean, someone like Kamara, who is looked at as probably top running back this year. You could get rid of him, get a ton of stuff for him. Next year, he could have Taysom Hill. Who knows who he's going to have, So, and you see what can happen whenever he's not with Breeze and just getting all the targets, getting all the carries. And I mean, I would love to get rid of him.
I sold Kamara and James Robinson way too early in the Super Goat, and that probably cost me the opportunity to fight for the title. But I do agree with Kamara. He was my 101 coming into the season. Dan will attest to that. But again, you see what's happening, the environment around him, the age. We talk about that age 25, the new cliff for running backs. You got to sell these guys when they're and then they become girly if you don't. Then you're stuck with them. The David Johnsons, like you got to basically ride it out. Or you give him for nothing, which is not fun. So right now, that's a great call. Kamara, you got him right now on your team. I'm selling that all day.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb's another one. He's going to be 26. I'm selling Nick Chubb, man.
When you have guys like that, it's like you're paddling the inflatable boat to shore, and all of a sudden you hit a branch or a stick or something, pop a big hole in there, and you're just paddling away trying to get to shore. Just give me one more championship, and you're just like, no, and you're just sinking, like Wile E. Coyote or something like that. It's just well, that's a desert scene.
Yeah, no, I mean some of those guys. I mean. You said it. Sometimes they just die on your roster. I mean, you try to do your best, and you can. But Davante Adams though. I mean, those wide receivers, they hold their value for so long. So that's why I think Dan, you said. I mean, the iron price. So if you guys are interested, let me know. I think that you've got a couple good wide receivers. Maybe you guys can help me get back into the draft, first, second round. Who knows? Maybe I can retool pretty fast here and go for back-to-backs.
Yeah, and that is an important point, is that the wide receivers that are up in those, in the top half of first round of startup picks, they are going to hold their value probably longer than the running backs, but they're definitely not infallible either. So again, you got to kind of listen to those offers and figure out what you can do. I mean, if you get too caught on last year, you're gonna be sunk in the next year.
Yeah, history does tell us those any receiver that finished top 12 as a wide receiver one has a really high chance of reestablishing that status in a season, whereas running back isn't the same. So if you sold Zeke a year ago, you're happy, right? If you're holding Zeke right now, you're eating cereal, but he's not eating yards.
We're in the belly shirts.
You got to know when to sell, but that's the thing in Dynasty, right? That's the balance that we play. It's, do I keep this player and go for the ship? Do I ride him out? Do I move him before I lose value? That's the balancing act, right? It's juggling.
Yeah, he's gone from Zeke to the Zeke virus. So.
Yeah, really. But then, not to go back and forth, but then who knows? Maybe he gets Dak back, and maybe he's something again, or who knows? Maybe now is the buying time if he's that low.
I would agree if he wasn't the age he is and didn't have the hair that he had. That's and if he didn't have Dan's
Pollard
from last
year. Pollard's the man. Yeah, Pollard. He showed what he can do.
Noah and Eric and Dan's crushes, because I know Noah was also huge on Pollard. I remember he came on the show talking about Pollard. I didn't even know who Pollard was. I was like, what are you talking about? So it's when you've got that behind, and he showed, right, when they show flashes, it gets scary,
right?
But I do think that can reignite it a bit.
Yeah, well, and they're tied to Zeke for a while, but I mean, Pollard is he's so good, and eventually they're going to have to do what works, or McCarthy's going to be out, and McCarthy has never been that big on just holding on to one running back and not giving the other running back a chance. So, I think there's a good chance we start seeing a little bit more Pollard in 2021. So he's a nice buy low right now too, because everybody thinks, well, Zeke is still uncuttable, and he is. The Cowboys can't get rid of him, but that doesn't mean that they can't, start changing the narrative a little bit and saying, well, we're going to take some of the load off him. We want to preserve him. We want him strong for the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. Teams can spin things any way that they want. And, when you look at the bottom line, you're like, yeah, they know Pollard's a better back and they want to get him on the field more, but Zeke is making a contract. He's got that money that says they have to play him some too. So, that's what's really going on here.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler worked for that 1 year. I mean, you could see Pollard in that Eckler role.
Exactly.
Easily next year is that transition.
Yeah, I was going to compare it to the Chubb and Kareem Hunt type situation.
Yeah. The main difference there is just that, with at least with Hunt and Chubb, you had a younger Chubb, you had a little bit younger Gordon, that were kind of keeping up their end of it. But, I love the Eckler and Hunt comparisons for Pollard, and I hope that that's where he gets to.
Yep.
Is this where I get to end it off with my David Montgomery call?
Yes, you got it. You got to get that in there. That was a flash call.
I was trying to look up where he finished those last few weeks. I don't know if I'll load it up quick enough, but damn, that was such a good call, man.
Yeah.
Like, he helped. I kept telling people, like, if you look at his schedule and he played top 5 defenses those first whatever weeks, it was like a no-brainer to go on. And I'm not even a Montgomery guy. Like, I didn't even like him coming in. I didn't even draft him anywhere as a rookie, but he was going cheap. And he had all the volume, the targets. Like, there's no one else there in Chicago. Like, it was kind of a no-brainer with the schedule coming. And man, that panned out nicely. And look, I even used it in my own 500. And he took me him, Jacobs, and Sanders, my running back core there, just took me to the promised land. So I had to throw that in right at the end. And come on,
Well,
I don't gloat a lot about those things. I don't, but that one was really good.
I'm pulling it up. Okay, so I'm seeing how far back I can go. All right, so if we start week 12.
Oh, you're on RotoViz.
Yes. If you start from week 12, David Montgomery, number one running back in all of fantasy football.
There you go. And I've got actually week per week. So he was the running back 8 in week 16, the running back 2 in week 15, the running back 6 in week 14, running back 1 in week 13, running back 6 in week 12. So yeah, like those last 4 or 5 weeks, that's a ship right there. You match them up with whoever else, Aaron Jones or whoever it is that you drafted nicely. And like we said, running back, you can plug it in. And that was a trade that I made in that FFPC. Again, he wasn't expensive because he hadn't done too well, and for some reason I find that is like one of those obvious things that people don't look at. Look at the schedule. Look at who he's played. It doesn't matter who, Montgomery or anyone else. First thing you should look at, if he's not doing well or not performing, what defenses has he played against? And again, it's kind of a simple thing to look at, but I think sometimes it's forgotten. And that was really what I looked at with Montgomery, and it paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to get back to Brandon's point too, about zero running back and, just you can play the waiver wire. J.D. McKissick, the number 8 running back from week 12 on.
Wow.
James Robinson, number 10 running back from week 12 on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these were guys that you could get for, just basically free agent dollars, which is in Dynasty, the cheapest form of acquisition of them all. So, just some fantastic things there. Jeff Wilson, even,
he went off. Hey, Dan, he went off for us in what league? We got our 101. Is it the hard way?
Yeah, he went off. I think that was a hardway league.
Him and Kamara just sealed it for us.
Yeah, it was. So you get players like that, and they do a lot of damage for you. Heck, even Gio Bernard, came back from the dead.
So
19.
Let me ask you guys this, Dan. Let me ask you this, guys. This is how we'll end this thing, because I know you guys are dying to go. Whatever, it's the holidays. Shelly's got to get a haircut. And
Yep.
So, guys, we're basically saying, you know, you want your stud tight end, you want those stud receivers for sure, and you figure out a running back, right? That's kind of what we're saying here, especially when you're talking FFPC format. We're not the only ones saying that going into next year. We all, based on how this year just happened, when the startups happened, those running backs were going early. That's going to change. We're going to see a lot more receivers move up into those first couple rounds. Do you guys follow that? Do you go against it? Like, do you guys have any kind of early, it's not even the off season, but do you have any early thoughts on strategy here, knowing that most people will have this approach unless something drastic happens between now and, you know, middle of the off season? I'll go to you first, Brandon.
I would honestly and I told you this pre-show. I zig when people zag, man. I kind of just, that's always my strategy. I always go into it kind of having my own little strategy of what I want to happen, but once I see what people start doing, I'll kind of just take it the other way, you know. And if I see a bunch of, I mean, Adams going off early and bunch of guys like that. I mean, I know Justin Jefferson's going to go way high this year, and I mean, they're great players. But if you're going to let me have a Dalvin Cook or a big running back like that early on, I mean, I'll gladly take it. And it all depends on where you're drafting, right? And we got the 10 spot, which seemed like a very nice sweet spot for us. But if I'm early, obviously I'll take a running back if I feel like they're the best available player, and just go from there. And then I'll kind of adjust and just play what I would call a modified zero running back. Just get a stud running back and then literally take none, and just take all receivers, tight ends, everything else, and play the waiver wire after that.
And then because then you Pollard.
Exactly, yeah. Just Pollard all day, all Pollard.
Shelly, I didn't mean to call out your hair, brother. I'm
the
jealous, hairless guy. You know, I'm the jealous, hairless Canadian guy. That's all.
The haircut has been on the list for quite some time. It's just never.
Dude, leave it. If you have it, just let it go, man.
Just let it flow here.
Let it flow, exactly.
No, I mean, I think I'm with Brandon here. I mean, I think the modified zero be the zero be like the one stud running back, first 4 rounds, first 5 rounds, like what you're looking for, like in dynasty, in these main event football guys tournaments. Like, I am going to look for one running back who is going to potentially hold me over for the first couple weeks before we can sort it out on waiver wire. And I will tell you, my first year I played, 2019, I think was notorious for there being no waiver wire heroes whatsoever. Yep. And I didn't modify my redraft strategy in terms of how I played those tournaments. I still tried to play them. Hey, I'm going to try to get one. Maybe I went for like 2 in the first couple 5 rounds, but try to hammer wide receivers. And as I mentioned, like I really do think that this year more than ever, 17 games, if we really go to that, I think you need to be the anti-fragile strategy. You need to have your wide receivers locked down and ready to go there. I will say totally agree with Brandon's point on kind of rolling with punches and seeing what it gives you. Obviously, if someone's going to let some stud fall, you got to roll with that and kind of modify. But again, that's where I'm at. Like my goal is to lock in one running back in those first couple of rounds. I think as I think about formulating strategies for next year, I will say with Dan's joke this year and Brandon's comment, I'll at least leave my parting words where with if the Justin Jefferson 101 isn't the troll move this year, then I don't know what is.
Don't encourage him.
It is. I mean,
he's a strong candidate.
The new AJP.
And it helps I'm a Vikings fan too.
I was gonna say the Viking is huge.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson 101.
He's right in there, definitely.
I'm gonna be the anti. I'm gonna go JT 101. And all you motherfuckers.
Love it.
Colts fan.
Yeah. It's all right. I'll be back here with a Super Bowl. It's all good.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to do some fun things, like as far as, I think you guys have the right strategy, zigging where everybody else zags. And one of the things I'm looking at is I don't think a lot of people are still sold on James Robinson. I don't think a lot of people are sold at all on Myles Gaskin. And if those players fall into value ranges, I'm definitely going to be grabbing guys like that. Obviously, if they're if they're going at a high cost, then I'm a lot less interested because I do think there is risk there. But they're players that I think you can if they come cheap enough, you can definitely do some damage with. And then other guys, we kind of talked on Keyshawn Vaughn, but getting a Rojo Keyshawn Vaughn pairing for next year probably is going to come pretty cheap. And as we saw with Rojo and Fournette, it can be pretty valuable, because there were a few weeks where it was tough to tell who to play, but there were a lot of weeks where it wasn't really that tough to tell who to play. And if you can get something like that, Rojo and Fournette this year were not that expensive, or at least Fournette kind of fell into not that expensive category, towards the end of the draft season. But, they're players like that, you can sometimes grab, tandems like that and just kind of wait and see and hope somebody rises to the top, or that you can figure out the right weeks to play them.
Well, and Dan, I want to point out, so like you said, but you can get Rojo and Vaughn pretty cheap, right? Probably fifth round, who knows, sixth round. But my running backs that I drafted, other than Aaron Jones, Sony Michel, Ryko Armstead, Damian Williams, Bryce Love. They didn't even play any of them. So, I mean, those were my running backs that I came out of the draft with. And that's where you can take the shots at. Yeah, exactly. That's where you can take the shots at running back in the mid rounds and be okay. You can survive it.
Right. Exactly. Because even if you come up all zeros, there's still ways you can get around it. You might have had a tougher time in 2019. I'll definitely agree with Andrew on that. It was a tougher year for running backs coming off the waiver wire. But, that also is a little bit unusual. I mean, most years are more like this year, where you can count on getting some guys off the waiver wire. So, that's the way I tend to play it as well. I had some teams that I played zero running back in 2019, and those were disasters.
Disaster.
Yes.
That was my welcome punch in the face to FFPC. Oh, let me run out this zero RB strategy and just got smacked around.
Yeah, the Mike Davises, they don't happen like that. You know what I mean? That's a once a year, and if you don't hit it, you're kind of left chasing it, every week on the waiver wire. And yeah, you hit the JD McKissicks and you get lucky once in a while, but it's easy to just keep missing on some of those running backs. And like you said, it's hard, man. I think my last week I was playing for the 101 in one of my lower buy-in dynasties against Shane Manila. And who did I start at? It was either Penny. I was choosing between Penny and Kelly at running back. And it's like neither of them were really playing. They're getting a few snaps a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was one of those where Ronald Jones was out. I was, super light at running back, and the FFPC just doesn't forgive that, especially late in the season.
That's right. And I guess so. I guess the last thing, and I will shut up at this point. But Fantasy Mojo, great.
You just stretch this another 30 minutes for the listeners, man. They're loving it.
No. Awesome. I'll be quiet.
Of gold, by the way. If you're listening, this is good shit. That it might be.
No. So Fantasy Mojo, you guys sign up for his site. Darren Armani, does a lot of good
100%.
This is free content, though. Even though shout out, you should subscribe to his site. It's on Twitter. He's on Twitter. And he did his waiver run 1 and 2s for the contests this year. And, as much as we like to think that we're smarter in Dynasty and sharper on some of these younger guys, these guys were available too. If you look at it in the case that Brandon made for why you shoot 60, you said 65%, Brandon, 65% at Mike Davis. Like if you look at those waiver runs, and this tweet was from 11 hours ago. So, whatever that was, December 30th, around noon, he's got it right. And you see James Robinson week 1, Myles Gaskin week 2, and then you just see the trash that people were shooting as the top bid. Kalen Ballage, Ty Johnson, DeAndre Washington.
They're just chasing, right?
Yeah, they're just chasing. And this is the case for look, hey, the money comes in those top 1 or 2 spots. It's like the Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. And I hate bringing that up because I didn't love the movie, but it's so true here. Like, it's so top-ended in terms of these payout structures that you have to make your bets early and live with the results. Because otherwise, JD, you're chasing. You're throwing all of your fab money that you sat on at potentially somebody who's just like a dumpster fire and a half. Whereas, like, you could have had James Robinson, Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, whoever at the beginning of the season. So Fantasy Mojo, that's my last plug. Take a look at that waiver wire results, because I mean, it just goes to show you got to make your bets early and hope the chips fall in your favor.
No, we talk about on this show, man. He's especially going in the off season. If you're into best ball and you're in the FFPC, when those startups start, it's a no-brainer. You must be a member of Fantasy Mojo. So shout out to him. Again, not a sponsor or anything, just a dude we interact with on Twitter, and a good guy that puts out a very useful site.
Yep,
all right, guys,
sure.
I think we'll wrap it up. Like I said, Shelly, thanks for extending it. That was awesome. This is the stuff we like to talk about, and especially when it's not planned. It's not in the show sheet. Some people say fuck the show sheet, but whatever. We just put it out there. But no, we appreciate you guys coming on. We appreciate the listeners. Like I said, you guys have been awesome all year. We hope that you've been following us and that you benefited and that you are celebrating championships right now, because that's what it's all about. Hashtag always be winning. And Dan, we got a lot of new exciting things in store for Fantasyland in the new year. We're going to make some little adjustments to the GOAT District, the GOAT cast, just so we can bring some more goodness to Fantasyland. And like I said, if you're listening, you've got something to bring, you think you bring value in any specific aspect of fantasy, contact Dan and I. You've got our handles on the screen there, at Over Hype Sleeper and OE on the end, at GOAT District. And we want to build a nice little team to put out some serious goodness for Fantasyland. And that's, if that's something that interests you, just shout out to us. Brandon, Shelly, you guys are awesome. We could go on all night, man. I got about 39 more questions that I wanted to throw out there. But Dan's green screen and his hair combined just make me so jealous. I don't know if I could keep going that long. So thanks a lot, guys. Thank you, Fantasyland. Happy New Year to everyone. Be safe, be happy, all that stuff, and take advantage, man. Squeeze your loved ones. You never know. COVID personally has taken some people away. I know today we had a Zoom funeral that my parents had to attend with a close friend that passed away from COVID. So, whether you agree or not, just wear a mask, be safe, and be happy, man, and enjoy those shifts, people. We'll check you all later.
GOAT District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.